Okay, just a quick recap. I think we did cover the 5 aggregates and the 6 sense bases. So basically, we've talked about mindfulness of the body, which is the physical setup, your postures, your parts of the body, your breathing and everything. And the mental aspects, to be mindful of feelings, whether these are pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And we talk about the spatial awareness or the emotions. We call this mindfulness or mind states, whether the mind is enlarged, scattered, restricted, and so on and so forth. And eventually we come to this mindfulness of Dhamma. Basically, it's like the so-called science behind our cognitive processes. So we've already covered the 5 hindrances, why people feel drowsy, why you get angry, why you get greedy, and so on. And we talk about the causes leading to these hindrances. So basically, as long as we have the 5 clinging aggregates and we have these 6 sense media, then we'll definitely have these 5 hindrances. As long as we cling to these aggregates, then it will lead to the hindrances. So the sequence of this mindfulness of the Dhamma, this Dhammanusati, is in terms of suffering, 5 aggregates, the symptoms of suffering. And we talk about the causes, basically how the 5 aggregates and the 6 sense media work. Whatever you see, hear, smell, think, taste, and touch, that will depend on the 5 clinging aggregates. So the 5 clinging aggregates are the we call it the various aspects of experience, the totality of experience, the 5 components to experience the world through our 6 senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So the internal media would be your organs, and the external media would be the object that you perceive. Right? So if you have the eye organ, then the words you see on the screen, that's the external sense media. So that's the pair. So you have 6 pairs: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So because of this cognitive function, we'll definitely have these fetters. That means craving and clinging. Craving and clinging. So we need to be mindful how this craving and clinging arise, and how to let go of this craving and clinging. So the way to let go, according to this sutta, is to be mindful of impermanence, which is the next slide. Yeah, so same chorus or the same stock formula. We'll always mention about observing the arising and passing of these mental qualities. Internally, which is your internal sense media, your organs, they change, and also the external objects also change. And if you want to talk about the third link, that's called the consciousness. So you have the internal organ, and you have the external media, and you have the sense consciousness. So depending on your eye, depending on the eye object, depending on the forms, then eye consciousness arise. Eye consciousness arise. So the according to the 6 sextet, SEXTET, 6 times 6 lah. So depending on the 6 sense doors, then you have the 6 external object, then you have the 6 kinds of consciousness, and once you have the 6 types of consciousness, then you have the 6 types of contact. So what is contact? Contact means the meeting of 3 things: meeting of the eye, the object, and the eye consciousness. So the meeting of these 3 things is called contact. So if you do not have contact, means you are not paying attention to that thing. So right now, there can be 1,001 things going on, but we are not omniscient. We cannot know everything because there is no contact. So when you're listening to my sound, my voice, then there's ear consciousness and there's contact. If let's say you are daydreaming, right? You're not paying attention, your contact is to the mind sense door, or you're paying attention to something else. So that's called contact. So once you have a contact, then you have feeling, right? And so we have all these 6 sects. Okay, next slide. Okay, so today we are going to talk about this new topic called the 7 factors of awakening. So if you look at the picture on the right, you see this Naga king called Muchalinda sheltering the Buddha. So just nice, this is the year of the dragon. Then you have this dragon king appearing. Okay, so the artists will depict it as 7 heads. How the real Naga king look like, nobody know. So the 7 heads represent the 7 factors of awakening. So what are these 7 factors? So the first factor is called mindfulness. So you can look at the slide here. Mindfulness is the first factor, and the rest of the factors are at the last paragraph. Then you have analysis of qualities, that's the second factor. Then you have persistence, that's the next factor. Then the next factor is rapture, followed by serenity, concentration, and equanimity. So these are the 7 factors. So I'll just read through the process and I'll explain later. So there's a case where there being mindfulness as the factor for awakening present within. He discerns that mindfulness as a factor of awakening is present within me, or there being no mindfulness as a factor of awakening present within. He discerns that mindfulness as a factor for awakening is not present within me. So interestingly, when you practice mindfulness, sometimes you lapse mindfulness. That means you either lose your meditation theme, meditation object, or you lose the reflection of impermanence. So once you've forgotten, and if you know it, if you know that you've forgotten about it, then at least you are practicing. You're practicing about these 7 factors of awakening. So he discerns how there is a arising of unarisen mindfulness as a factor of awakening. Right, so you need to know the causes, how to arouse mindfulness. And he discerns how there is the culmination of the development of mindfulness as a factor of awakening once it has arisen. So basically this mindfulness is like charging a battery. If now it's 0%, you can train this mindfulness until it's full. And once it's full, it will create a, domino effect. Domino effect. So once you have mindfulness, it will trigger this effort. It actually comes together. You need to have persistence or right effort coupled with mindfulness. And the second factor is analysis of qualities. Then people will be thinking, mindfulness or what? So we have this mindfulness of the body, feelings, mind, and the Dhamma. So what are we going to analyze? We're actually analyzing impermanence, the quality of impermanence. So some people can be, let's say, when they're mindful of the body, if they do not have right view, they end up trying to visualize the sharpness of the image, how shiny is the hair, how's the contrast, how many pixels and so on. So you don't have to go to that extent. So what we are focusing on is on the mindfulness of impermanence. Mindfulness of impermanence. So that is what we are going to look out for, the quality of impermanence. And once you have that, then we need to couple with persistence or effort. So these are the three bases. You have the mindfulness, investigation, analysis of qualities, and you have persistence or right effort. So once you have these three as a base, it will trigger this thing called rapture. We call this Dhamma joy. So what will happen is if a person really practice observing impermanence until they have detachment, then this rapture will arise. So the rapture is more like a byproduct of detachment. Yeah, so you observe impermanence until you let go, then this joy will arise by itself as a byproduct. So you cannot train this rapture, you cannot force out this rapture, you cannot create this rapture purposely. So this rapture will be appearing as a byproduct. So the only thing you can sort of control is the first three factors. This mindfulness, analysis of qualities, and persistence. So basically, what it means, you always have to be mindful of impermanence. So that is the root cause. And once you have rapture, the rapture is impermanent, it will fade away. The rapture is temporary, it will disappear. And over time, it will develop into serenity, or some translators will call it tranquility. So the joy will be gone, you have certain kind of peace or quietness, and this serenity will eventually develop into a type of concentration. So this concentration is not the jhanic kind of concentration which we've talked in the first lesson. This concentration is this vipassana kind of concentration, insight-related concentration. So a person can have 0 jhanas and yet have concentration, this insight kind of concentration. And once they have this concentration, it will eventually develop into equanimity. So again, this is insight-related equanimity, nothing to do with the 3rd and 4th jhana. Okay, so why is this 7 factors of awakening different from the jhanas? Because a person can develop this concentration after rapture. Whereas in the jhanas, you need to enter the first jhana first to experience rapture. So it's tobalik, it's a reverse kind of sequence. So it's a totally different process. So the 7 factors of awakening, however, can be combined with the jhanas, or it can be separated from the jhanas. So if a person so-called practice jhanas only without any kind of insight, without reflecting on impermanence, then they won't experience these 7 factors of awakening. And like mentioned before, a person can practice jhanas only, and if let's say they pass away, they might be reborn in certain Brahma worlds to experience the fruit of the karma. And once they use up all the so-called good karmas from the jhanic concentration, and if they do not have any more further investment, they will be reborn in the lower realms. All the good karmas use up, then they will have all the bad karmas remaining, and they will be reborn in the lower realms. So that is for jhanas only. So if a person combine with these 7 factors of awakening, then the Buddha will call this the noble disciples, noble disciple way of practicing jhanas. So they will progress after, from the Brahma worlds, they will upgrade. Okay, so that is the 7 factors of awakening. And these 7 factors is not one-off thing. It's not a one-time thing. Depending on your craving, or depending on your lapse of this presence or absence of this mindfulness, then you lose these factors also. So basically, it's like a tug of war. One side of the rope, you have like the maybe representing, and the wisdom will be like the Buddha pulling one side, and the other end of the spectrum will be Mara, pulling the rope. So the middle line of the rope will move, inclining to whichever side, depending on how much mindfulness you have. So if a person doesn't apply the right effort, right mindfulness, okay, let's say they practice mindfulness to a certain extent. So this is the problem with certain so-called scholarly way of interpreting stages of vipassana, for example. They will claim to experience certain joy, and they think, okay, that's it, they're safe already. But once they lose the so-called mindfulness, they lose their right effort, then the mind will naturally cling onto unwholesome stimuli, stray thoughts, whatever it is, greed, anger. So it will be Mara pulling the rope to the other side. So whatever a person experiences, whatever factor they experience, serenity or concentration or even equanimity, will be gone if you lapse off mindfulness. Once you lapse off mindfulness, it will downslide. So it's like a roller coaster. So between the Buddha and Mara, tug of war. So this one require very consistent kind of effort. Consistent effort. So that's why the statement here mentions if a person, the factor of mindfulness is not present, you must know it's not present, because the mind is back to the default state, back to clinging to sensuality. Right? But if it's present, then this defilement will lessen, or the sensuality will lessen, and the mind will purify. Right? So the state of mind or the emotion will fluctuate depending on how much mindfulness or effort you apply. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. So the same objective again. A person can be mindful of this arising and passing away. The phenomenon of this arising and passing, origination and passing of these 7 factors. So the factor of rapture will fade away because it's impermanent, the serenity is impermanent, so on and so forth. So you have to know impermanent towards the Buddha direction or impermanent towards the Mara's direction. So if you're still mindful impermanence and all these whatever joy disappear, means it's a good thing. That means the mind might continue to proceed, continue to evolve to the other factors. But if, let's say, it disappear and you're not mindful of impermanence, then probably Mara is pulling the rope to the other side. So this is the part of mindfulness. Okay, next slide. Okay, any questions so far? Because this might be a chim topic. So all these 7 factors is an experiential process. It has, I try not to make it too metaphysical. Some people will think, oh, this is a metaphysical thing. No. Okay, so this is an experiential thing to be seen here and now. So as long as you continue to keep reflecting on impermanence, maybe once in a while you trigger this rapture, and you continue to be mindful, it will kind of proceed on. But if you lose, you cling on to something, then you will downslide back to square one, back to zero. then you need to start from the beginning. Then you mindful again, and suddenly you have this joy again. So we call this the process of familiarization. Familiarization. Then through this process, then you'll understand the Four Noble Truths. It is through applying the Noble Eightfold Path, when you detach, then you experience the third and fourth Noble Truth. Third Noble Truth is cessation of craving. Once you cease craving, you have some reward, and this reward is this rapture and this peace and so on. So there's some reward that you are on the right track, some signs on the right track, and once you start to cling again, then there's a cause of suffering. This peace will be gone, and then your mind will be chasing sensuality. So sensuality also has some happiness, but it's not the same kind of happiness from spiritual happiness. So sensual happiness depends on craving, whereas the spiritual happiness is actually going against craving. So that's the difference. So by clinging onto the sensuality, one will experience the first two Noble Truths. So some people will think, when I got suffering, I enjoy my life. When I daydream, I fantasize, I enjoy where I got suffering. It is only when a person experiences these 7 factors of awakening, then they have a kind of relative comparison, which is better. If not, any ordinary person will think, hey, sensuality is not suffering at all. So that's why when we recite the 6 qualities of the Dhamma, right, the Dhamma is to be known by the wise, each for themselves. So in order to be wise, you need to at least experience these 7 factors of awakening. If not, everything will be just theory. Okay, so now we are going to proceed to the Four Noble Truths, which we've covered already in the first lesson, but I'll cover it again. So this is actually part of the mindfulness also. So actually, right mindfulness will encompass everything. Four Noble Truths. Okay, let's click on to the next slide. Okay, first Noble Truth. No words.
Bante, no words.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so suddenly there's words. Okay, so probably some technical issues. Okay. So basically the first 2 slides might be talking about birth, aging, sickness, and death. And the separation from loved one. You have the 8 types of suffering. Birth, aging, sickness, death, separation from loved one, associating people that you do not like, not getting what you want. So in short, the 5 clinging aggregates is actually this suffering. So you need the 5 clinging aggregates to perceive birth, aging, sickness, death. Separation from loved one, not getting what you want, associating people that you do not like. So all these first 7 pointers are just examples. The main thing we're tackling is the 5 clinging aggregates. 5 clinging aggregates. So all the meditation subjects is actually eventually training to let go of these 5 clinging aggregates. We need to make use of the 5 clinging aggregates to watch the breath. We need to make use of the 5 clinging aggregates to maybe recite the Buddha's name. We need the 5 clinging aggregates to visualize the impurities of the body. So we need the 5 clinging aggregates to function all the 6 sense bases. So when a person, let's say, observe the 4 elements, we are not training the 4 elements. Or when we are observing the impurities of the body, we are not training the parts of the body. we're actually learning to let go of the 5 clinging aggregates. So that is why when the Buddha, he attained enlightenment with the breath meditation, but he's able to teach different kinds of meditation subject because the concept or the science behind it is actually the 5 clinging aggregates. Yeah, the Buddha is not training the breath, he's actually training to let go of the 5 clinging aggregates. So once he's able to let go or understand the science behind the 5 clinging aggregates, then he's able to teach any kind of meditation subject linking to the detachment of the 5 clinging aggregates. Yeah, so that's the so-called First Noble Truth, understanding 5 clinging aggregates with regard to stress. So the term here, stress, is Ajahn Thanisaro's translation. The more common translation would be suffering or dissatisfaction. Okay, next. Okay, second noble truth. Also, I think maybe the format has some problems. So some of the words missing. Okay, so second noble truth talks about the cause of suffering. So the cause of suffering is craving. So basically our greed, hatred, and delusion. But we focus more on the greed and anger. Because once you have the two, then definitely there will be delusion. So we mentioned how greed arises is when a person experiences pleasant feelings. When a person experiences pleasant feelings, and if they are not mindful, then they will react with greed. Because it's a nice feeling, they want some more. Yeah, they want to experience more. So that is called greed. And the opposite would be anger. If a person experiences an unpleasant feeling, and if they're not mindful, they will react with anger. So that is the second kind of craving. And the third kind of craving would be delusion. So if let's say a person doesn't experience pleasant feeling, doesn't experience unpleasant feeling, then we call this neutral feeling, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And if a person again not mindful, the mind will still cling. That's the nature of the mind. So the mind is a bit like this concrete cement mixer. Once we stop spinning only, then it will naturally harden. The mind will harden and cling on something. So if you're not mindful of impermanence, even though it's neutral, there's no pleasant or unpleasant feeling, it's a neutral feeling, we will still cling. So we call this delusion. Yeah, so you have greed, anger, delusion. So even if a person has greed, there's still delusion. If there's anger, there's still delusion. You experience neutral feeling, there's also delusion. So it's still there. So you need impermanence, or the reflection of impermanence, to break off this delusion. Yeah? Okay. So now we talk about the third noble truth. So actually I covered almost like everything. So the first two noble truths talks about causing and experiencing the suffering. So now we talk about the third noble truth, which is cessation of stress. The remainderless fading and cessation, renunciation, relinquishment, release, and letting go of that very craving. Right? So we're actually practicing to learn to let go of greed and anger. And when being abandoned, is the craving abandoned? And where, when ceasing, does it cease? Whatever seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, that is where, when being abandoned, that is craving is abandoned. That is where, when ceasing, it ceases. So I think there's a lot of technical issues. So So basically, the third noble truth talks about letting go of craving. So basically, some people just will teach you, or some you come across some teaching, let go lah, let go, how to let go. Right? So the third noble truth talks about you can do it. That's the result. So the four noble truth is arranged in a manner of effect, cause, effect, cause. So the first noble truth talks about the effect, the result. There is suffering, but what causes this suffering? That is the craving, so that is a cause. And the third noble truth talks about effect, the result. Letting go of craving. So that's the result. But how? How to let go? What is the cause? Right? So we talk about the fourth noble truth. Next slide. Yeah, so the fourth noble truth talks about the Noble Eightfold Path, leading to the cessation of stress. So it's normally represented by the eight-spoked wheel, which represents the Noble Eightfold Path. So in sequence, we have right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So that's the fourth noble truth, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path is a package. Yeah, it's a package. So who can understand the Four Noble Truths? So it is, we believe, a stream enterer, they will have a glimpse of Nibbana. That means they have a glimpse of cessation of craving. Once they let go of craving, they will experience certain peace or certain kind of happiness that is devoid of craving. So a stream enterer will have no more doubt of the Four Noble Truths. Yeah? So a stream enterer will experience the Four Noble Truths a bit only. But only an Arahant will have no more ignorance with regard to the Four Noble Truths. That means they totally eradicate craving. That means they have total spectrum. I mean, they experience the total spectrum of these third and fourth noble truth. Whereas the stream enterer will have a partial spectrum. Okay, next. Okay, so this is again the definition. So a bit of revision. So right view is actually the Four Noble Truths. So the right view is the first of the Noble Eightfold Path. So in order to have right view, you need to know the Four Noble Truths. Yeah? Knowledge with regard to stress, knowledge with regard to the origination of stress, knowledge with regard to the cessation of stress, and knowledge with regard to the way practicing leading to the cessation of stress. This is called right view. Yeah, and you need this because if a person does not have right view, then a person can maybe come to a temple, then you see them chanting, or see them bowing, or see them meditating, but they have other view, they have other agenda. They're not here to overcome stress. They're not here to overcome craving. They're aiming for something else. They might be aiming for good fortune or good luck. So that's what we wish for Chinese New Year, right? Wish you good fortune, gong xi, fa cai, and stuff like that. So there are people who want all these things. They want all kinds of other mundane things other than detachment. So a person can spend many years or many hours, many years practicing, and it can be wasting that time. Right? So unless you have right view, then you'll be on the right track. So the whole idea is to be a better person, practice detachment, become a purer person. So you need to have this in mind. Okay, and right resolve is actually the action, the execution basically, the right thought, right? Aspiring to renunciation, to freedom from ill will, to harmlessness. This is called right resolve. So basically any thoughts of non-greed and non-anger, which is the total opposite of the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is craving, right? Craving is defined as greed, anger, and delusion. So right resolve is basically the opposite of the cause of craving. So this right resolve is basically the answer. But right thought alone is not enough. You need to follow up, right? So you have the other factors to support this continual right resolve. So you also need to have the holistic approach. So the first two of the Eightfold Path, the right view and right resolve is basically under the category of wisdom, panya. So our topic is on the 5 qualities, right? So we've already covered the wisdom faculty, right view and right resolve. So now we're going to talk about the moral aspect, right speech, right action, right livelihood, which we've already covered in the previous lessons on the faith, the faculty of faith. So I'll just briefly read through. What is right speech? Abstaining from lying, from divisive speech, from abusive speech, from idle chatter. This is called right speech. So earlier on we chanted the precept, I refrain from telling lies, right? I undertake the precept to refrain from telling lies. So some people will say, oh, I abstain from lying, but that doesn't mean I abstain from divisive speech, abusive speech and idle chatter. No. In the long run, if you want to experience the truth, the Dhamma, the inner peace, the inner truth, you need to avoid all those things also. Avoid divisive speech, abusive and idle chatter. Because if you say harsh speech or divisive speech, you make yourself guilty or remorseful, you won't have inner peace. You won't have inner peace. So some people can claim to spend many hours meditating. But outside meditation, then you see them scolding vulgar language and stuff like that. And it's like defeat the purpose. That's not real cultivation. It's like physical health or physical fitness. Some people say they can go to the gym, spend many hours exercising. Afterwards, they can come out, start drinking, smoking, and taking all the junk food. Then it kind of defeat the purpose. So we talk about holistic mental health or the spiritual health. You need to have all these right factors. Right speech and have the right action, abstaining from taking life, from stealing, from illicit sex. This is called right action. So basically the rest of the precepts. Okay, the next slide. And you have the right livelihood. So this is a very generic right livelihood. There's a case where a disciple of the noble ones, having abandoned dishonest livelihood, keeps his life going with right livelihood. This is called right livelihood. So this is very general. So in short, you need to have an honest livelihood, but to be more specific, for a lay person, the Buddha discourages 5 kinds of trade. 5 kinds of trade. Trading from weapons. Trading from trading of living beings. Maybe human trafficking, animal trafficking. And the third one, trading of meat. Very interesting. Avoid trading of meat. So indirectly, maybe promoting vegetarianism. Then the fourth one, avoid trading of poison. And the fifth one, avoid trading of these intoxicants, alcohol. So these are the 5 kind of trade that a layperson should avoid. And for monks, there's actually more. Livelihood with regard to like fortune telling, palmistry, phrenology, astrology, and so on. So anything that can sort of do like forecasting of the future, reading things that doesn't lead to reduction of greed, then that is a kind of a livelihood that the monastic should avoid. And that might apply for layperson who are serious in achieving the spiritual path, and they should avoid certain kind of livelihood that promote greed. Yeah. Okay. And what is right effort? There's the case where a monk generates desire, endeavors, arouses persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of the non-arising of evil, unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen. So that's the 4 kinds of right effort which we've covered in the faculty of effort. So I'll just read through the second quality: for the sake of abandoning of evil, unskillful qualities that have arisen. And the third quality, for the sake of the arising of skillful qualities that have not yet arisen. And for the last quality, for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, development, and culmination of skillful qualities that have arisen. This is called right effort. Yeah? So total, there are these 4 right efforts. Okay, next slide. And again, right mindfulness is what we are covering now. The 4 foundations of mindfulness. There's a case where a monk or any practitioner remains focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. He remains focused on feelings in and of themselves, repeating. Then the third one is the mind or mind states. And the last one, mental qualities or phenomenon. So these are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That is called right mindfulness. In the next. Okay, so I don't want to cover this. We'll cover this in the next lesson. Right concentration, basically the 4 jhanas. So earlier on, we talked about the 7 factors of enlightenment. The concentration from the 7 factors of enlightenment is different from this jhanic concentration. So right concentration, a person needs to enter this first level of concentration to experience rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. Withdraw from sensual pleasures. Whereas a person can practice, let's say, open awareness vipassana, when the mind is so-called engaging with the senses and reflecting on impermanence with their eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And when they detach from that clinging of the sense stimuli of the 6 senses, then rapture arises. So that's a different kind of rapture from this jhanic concentration. Jhanic concentration need to withdraw from the senses, need to not react to the senses, 6 senses. So there is a kind of rapture born out of withdrawal, and there is another kind of rapture born out of wisdom from detachment. So these are the 2 different kinds of rapture. So again, the second level of concentration, different set of emotions, and the third one, different set of emotions, and the fourth one, different set of emotions. Okay, next slide. Okay, so interestingly, even the Noble Eightfold Path, you need to be mindful, or the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, you need to be mindful of impermanence. So in another sutta, the Buddha was mentioning the only thing it taught is the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha is walking in the forest. I think I've given this example before, right? So he picked up a handful of leaves. So the ground of the forest have so many leaves. So he asked his monks, which one is more? The one in his hand, the leaves on his hand, or the leaves on the ground, which has more in quantity? So the monks answered, definitely the leaves on the floor, right? More in quantity. So the Buddha said the same thing. The thing that it taught is only this handful of leaves, which is the Four Noble Truths. So basically he's asking his disciples to work hard to contemplate on the Four Noble Truths. So one way to be mindful of the Four Noble Truths is to be mindful of stress. Once you have any form of tension, any form of stress, that is actually the symptom of the first two Noble Truths. That means this is like an alarm, your inner alarm will tell you, trigger on, then you know there's suffering. You must do something to put out the fire. It's like fire alarm, but then you know there's suffering, there's a fire. Then you need to put out the fire, put out the craving. Then you need to apply the nectar, the water of wisdom. Apply the Noble Eightfold Path to quench this craving. Right? So this is your inner observation all the time. Every time there's tension, there's stress, then you need to apply something to cool the mind, to relieve the stress. Apply the Noble Eightfold Path. Right? Apply this reflection of impermanence. So this stress also impermanent, changing, this stress and peace, up and down all the time, up and down. So always changing. So you need to observe the origination of this stress, or origination of the peace, and the passing away of the stress and the peace. So always apply. So basically it's familiarity. If you can maintain and perfect the peace, then very good. Then that is called right effort. But this is the process of right effort also. If there's craving arise, there's stress arise, you know it, very good. Then you try to abandon it. Right? So this is part of this mindfulness of impermanence. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, so conclusion. So the Buddha will guarantee if a person practices 4 frames of reference or the 4 foundation of mindfulness for 7 years, one of the 2 fruits can be expected for him. Either gnosis here and now, that means a person achieve arahanthood, that means complete enlightenment. If there be any remnant of clinging or sustenance, then they will achieve non-returner. So non-returner is the level right before arahanthood. So basically almost close to enlightenment. So this is the Buddha's guarantee. So either complete enlightenment or one step before complete enlightenment. So this non-returner. So non-returner also very close. They overcome greed and anger. So it's as good as a very pure mind already. Okay, then let alone 7 years. So the Buddha give discount. So if anybody would develop these 4 frames of reference in this way for 6 years, 6 years not good enough. If you're more hardworking, 5 years. If you're more hardworking, 4 years. Then the Buddha give more discount. 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 7 months, 6 months, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 month, half a month. And the lowest he can give, 7 days. 7 days. One of the 2 fruits can be expected for him. So you have been attending my class for how many weeks already? This is the yeah, six times 7. So that means no worries. The Buddha, even though they mention 7 years maximum, okay, so these 7 years talk about every day, every moment, as long as you are awake. As long as you are awake, every moment you need to be mindful of impermanence. So the Buddha discount minus of sleeping time. So sleeping time don't have to count. As long as you are conscious, as long as you are awake, you need to be mindful of impermanence. So we talk about the stream enterer, maximum 7 lifetimes. So a lot of 7 lifetimes, 7 years. And so now minimum 7 days. 7 days. So this is just like a numeric metaphor. Numeric metaphor. There's even a disciple or many Buddha's disciples reach enlightenment in one sermon. One sermon. So I do not know, is it 7 minutes or something? So a lot of 7. So one of the 2 fruits can be expected for him, either gnosis right here and now, or if there any remnant non-returner. Okay, so this is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of right method, and for the realization of unbinding. In the other words, the 4 frames of reference, thus was it said, and in reference to this was it said. And then the rest of the monks rejoiced, and that's the end of the sutta for foundation of mindfulness. So we've covered on this Mahasatipatthana Sutta in, I think, quite detail or quite comprehensively, almost everything. And I think I opened the ground to Q&A. Even from previous lessons, there are some questions we can ask them, yeah?
Okay, Bante, there's one question in the chat. May I know how to practice right mindfulness?
How to practice right mindfulness? Okay, so I think you have missed one of the lessons. So basically, wherever you place your attention, okay, so we talk about mindfulness of the body, that means regardless of posture, regardless of physical activity, you can practice impermanence. So that is practicing mindfulness. And your mental focus, wherever your focus is, it can be scattered, it can be open, it can be restricted, it can be directed at one spot. Your mind can be clear, can be concentrated, it can be full of greed, it can be deluded. Whatever state of mind it is, wherever you place your attention, you also can be mindful of impermanence. So that is the mindfulness of states of mind. So that is the gist of it. That means your physical setup, doesn't matter what kind of physical setup it is or whatever mental setup it is, you can always be mindful of impermanence. So in short, every moment is an opportunity to practice mindfulness of impermanence. You have no excuse to say, I have no time to practice. Yeah, so that is the takeaway. All right.
There's no more question in the chat.
Anyone else? So feel free to shoot. There's another question.
Renunciation means to join the Sangha, as in the text it is mean more than for men. Means to join the Sangha.
Can you repeat the question?
Renunciation means to join the Sangha, as in the text is it means more for men? Or renunciation, is it more for men?
Okay, so the renunciation mentioned in the Noble Eightfold Path, they mention the right resolve, right thoughts of renunciation. So this renunciation is actually the letting go part. It's not so much on the physical renunciation, it's more on the mental letting go, mental detachment. So this is the point I will clarify. Yeah, nothing to do with the physical renunciation. Huh? But of course, if a person, their conditions are right, they want the full kind of complete package. You want to go for the physical renunciation. Do choose well. I would say you need to do your window shopping. So this is where you need to look at the past videos again on the faith faculty to look for the right teacher. Huh? Okay, and is it for men only? I would say for females you can ordain also. In the Mahayana tradition, it's still widely recognized. It's still very official. In the Mahayana tradition, the nuns, the bhikshuni, yeah, they are still recognized. So in the Theravada tradition, it's still like, I would say, maybe controversial. There are a few schools that kind of revived the female ordination movement, and I think it's still growing. The Tibetans also, there are certain schools that revive the female nuns, the ordination, right? So you need to check out first before ordaining, because if once you ordain in those particular traditions, your movements will be pretty much restricted. You can only stay in those particular monasteries or centers that approve of those the nuns' ordination. So if let's say the majority of the school kind of do not acknowledge your ordination, you have hard time staying in those monasteries, or you can't even stay in those monasteries. Yeah, so you need to do your homework or research before ordaining. Yeah.
Okay, Bante, the next question is, does Theravada only allow transfer of merits, or do they have delegating or sharing of merits?
So there are a lot of terms they use, they call transference of merit, which I do not kind of agree. I think the more appropriate term would be dedication of merit. Yeah, because we cannot so-called transfer is more like you have like a connotation like transferring money from a bank account to another person. So it doesn't work that way. Karma doesn't work that way. You cannot transfer the merit or the good karma to another person. If it can be done, all the past Buddhas with their immeasurable merit would have done that long ago. And we would have been some lower realm long ago, and we would have received so much merit, transferred so much merit until we don't have to be here anymore, right? So that's not how it's supposed to be done. The Buddha only point the way, and we ourselves have to strive. We have to walk our own path. So what this dedication of merit means is that when we perform some form of wholesome deed, either through body, speech, or mind, the mind becomes more radiant. We dedicate to a certain relative or group of relatives, unseen beings, and those beings, if let's say they are hungry ghosts, if they look at us doing well and they rejoice, they create their own good karma. They create their own good karma. So by doing so, they remove themselves from that selfishness state. Yeah, so they kind of hopefully they're reborn into a better plane. So that is the dedication of merit. So for the devas in the higher realm, if they are more meritorious than us, they actually don't need the merit. They don't really need the but it's more like a consolation. They feel happy for you. Yeah? But if let's say you cultivate and you have maybe concentrated states of mind, you have insight, they will rejoice for you also, and they will want to protect you and rejoice with you. So, so in a way, it kind of works both ways. It's a win-win situation. So it's still good to dedicate to all beings. So in the suttas, in Theravada suttas, only the hungry ghost realm can benefit. So the other realms don't really benefit much, like the human realm, like I dedicate to someone, or somebody dedicate to me, I won't even know. I won't even know. Or it won't even I don't see any much benefit to me, right? So because the human body may be too rigid. But for the hungry ghosts, they're in a state of suffering. So probably in that metaphysical state or in their particular realm or particular world, that might help them. Yeah, their physics or whatever work very differently. Whereas the other realms don't need much of our help. But it's still good to dedicate to all beings, to the deceased and so on. Yeah. Okay, what's the next question?
Okay, so somebody asked, is mindfulness only focused on impermanence?
Mindfulness, yeah. So in the sutta, the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the go-to definition would be mindfulness of impermanence. So that is the sure method for insight, for detachment. But if let's say your mind is too scattered, no matter how you think of impermanence, like nothing, like nothing. That means you need to recharge the mind a bit. Or sometimes the mind is resistant to impermanence. Let's say you start to think or reflect impermanence of the hair. My hair will grow old, it'll fall off, it'll turn white, it'll fall off. Then you're not ready to accept, my hair turned white, maybe I should dye my hair. Or my hair fall off, getting Botox already. Maybe I should visit the Yunnan Hair Treatment Center to treat my hair. So you're not ready to accept impermanence. You still cannot let go. Right? So that means the mind is not the neutral state. The mind is not objective enough. So you need other kinds of meditation to make the mind more neutral. So things like loving kindness and other kinds of samatha meditation to calm the mind, make it more neutral, make it more objective. Then you can think of impermanence. Right? So this is the inner philosophy. It works maybe externally as well, maybe to people relations. Maybe, for example, a certain foreign delegate, when the ambassador or certain minister, foreign minister want to visit another country, the first thing they land on another country is not to negotiate deals straight away, not to straight away sign agreements and discuss certain treaties and stuff like that. No, the first thing that come down is to have the hospitality of the country. The host country will maybe bring them around, sightseeing, treat them a nice meal, make them happy first. Once they're happy, then they can start to discuss things. And maybe they can sign the treaty more agreeably, something like that. So you need to have some metta, loving kindness first. So once you have loving kindness, you think of the hair fall down, okay, can accept. You think of the skin falling off, you can accept. Something like that. So you need the mind to be a neutral, objective, agreeable state. Okay, next question.
So, must we contemplate the body as part of meditation practice in order to be liberated?
There are many kinds of meditation objects. So mindfulness of the body is one type. But I would say whatever the meditation object, for example, in the routine that I do, like loving kindness, I will fall back with mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the four elements. If not, if you straight go to the mind, you do not have the foundation, you do not have the anchor point, you easily drift off, daydream. So it's good to anchor with the mindfulness of the body, regardless of what kind of meditation. So there are other kinds of meditation which are more maybe subtle in nature. Like some people think of, we'll talk more in the next session on the concentration. So there are certain visualization kinds, there are maybe conceptual kinds. People think of nothingness or emptiness, or think of the Buddha qualities. So these are a bit more subtle in nature.
Okay, then how do we get rid of the fear and anxiety about impermanence?
Fear, anxiety of impermanence. One of the ways is repeated practice. You may not need to do the very gross kind of meditation, thinking of the body falling off apart and stuff like that. You can think of the sensations. So this is more acceptable. Sensations changing all the time. So it is more observable, it's more real time. You don't have to like over imagine. Yeah.
Okay, Monday, the next question is, can please explain again the two types of raptures mentioned earlier?
Okay. So for this kind of pleasant emotions, the Buddha mentioned there are 3 worlds. You can find this in the Niramisa Sutta, unworldly sutta. So there's the worldly kind of joy, worldly kind of happiness, worldly kind of equanimity even. And the Buddha mentioned there's a unworldly kind of joy, unworldly happiness, unworldly kind of equanimity. So these unworldly states is the jhanic states. So if a person do not react to stimuli, they keep on coming back to the meditation subject, they may experience the different jhanic emotions. So that is the unworldly state of mind. So the worldly state of mind is the normal sensual pleasure lah. You go shopping, you listen to nice music, taste nice food. So these are the worldly kind of pleasure, worldly kind of happiness, worldly kind of joy, and worldly kind of equanimity would be bocha. That means there's certain disaster going on, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. So the mind very peaceful, very peaceful. So that is the worldly kind of equanimity. Okay. Whereas the unworldly kind of equanimity is if a person keep on directing their mind on the meditation object, they will have this unworldly joy, unworldly happiness, and unworldly kind of equanimity. So the mind can be recharged with equanimity. They can operate in the world, but it will drain off their samadhi, it will drain off their equanimity over time. It will drain off their peace. So basically, unworldly equanimity is like charging the battery of the mind. So a lot of people like to sit there, calm, still achieve peace. So in the monastery settings, a lot of monasteries will have certain time reserved for meditation, morning and evening time to recharge the battery. And once you recharge ready, then you can do your work. Then you can spend out the battery, then no battery again, I recharge. So this is the unworldly state of mind. And then there is a beyond unworldly, beyond conditioning. So if a person want to go for long-term happiness, they need to detach from this charging and discharging process. The charging and discharging also suffering, So you need to detach, go beyond that. So that going beyond, there's also a beyond unworldly joy, beyond unworldly happiness, beyond unworldly equanimity. So that is Nibbana actually. So the 7 factors of awakening is actually the process leading to the beyond unworldly state. It's a gateway. gateway. And this gateway, once you pass through the gateway, still got long journey. It's a tug of war between Buddha and Mara. So it's a long journey. It might take 7 years, might take 7 lifetimes. If you're super hardworking, maybe 7 days. So that is the journey. Yep.
Bante, can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Regarding to this question, what about when you are in a worldly setting, and then you just feel that it's very noisy, it's very uncomfortable. You just want to run away and from that situation. Actually, what state is that?
Yeah, if the mind cannot take it and you want to run away, I won't say it's totally a bad thing. Spiritually means that your kung fu is still not enough. Your mind is not equanimous enough to absorb in the impact. So you need to siam, which may not be a bad thing. Some issues need to siam one side. Some issues you cannot resolve it. So I give an example of the Palelai Buddha. I reside in Palelai Temple. So I'm not sure whether you heard of the story of the Palelai Buddha. So the reason why it is called Palelai Buddha is because the Buddha met an incident, a quarrel in a monastery. There's a particular monastery in Kosambi in India. The monks had an issue with the toilet. Some monks use the toilet already, they flush with the so-called bucket of water, and they never refill. One of the monks never refill. So the next monk when they enter, cannot flush because the water not refill. So the monks were fault finding each other because there are Vinaya rules with regard to the toilet. So the monastic rules is not just 200 something. It's not just 200 over. The whole Vinaya could be 1,000 over rules with regard to monastic protocols, how to behave in a monastery and stuff like that. It can be 1,000 over protocols. So one of the protocols cover the toilet etiquette, toilet protocols. So the monks were arguing which monk is it breaking the rules if they do not refill the water. So the monks have two factions to arguing. The monks say, one says they're not at fault, one says at fault to not refill the water. So when more visiting monks came to stay, they also took sides, then become like a big issue, and it almost became a schism. Almost became a schism. So you know what is a schism, right? Schism means the Sangha split into two because they disagree with the issue. So almost became a schism. So the Buddha came by and asked, well, what's going on? How come you're quarreling? So the monks briefed the Buddha what happened is a toilet issue and asked the Buddha to be left out of this argument. Asked the Buddha not to join in. That means ask the Buddha not to take part, not to get involved. So the Buddha is like, okay, the Buddha can't do anything about it. So he siam. So he left. He went to this forest called the Parelayaka forest. So the Thai people cannot pronounce Parelayaka, so they pronounce Palelai. So that's how you got the name Palelai. So anyway, in the forest, he had a retreat. He said, okay, leave the monks alone. And I'm not sure how long he had the retreat. So when the villagers, the lay persons that support the monks in the Kosambi region knew about this incident, knew about, the Buddha also left. The Buddha also can't help the monks. Then the lay people decided to boycott the monks. That means during the alms round, the lay people don't give them food. So the monks go for the alms round, no food. So when they get hungry, then they wake up their idea. They decided not to quarrel anymore. Then decided to go to the Buddha and apologize to the Buddha and ask for forgiveness and issue resolve. So that's the story of Palelai. So sometimes if you siam might be a good thing. If you avoid if you kind of retreat. That's why we call it a retreat, right? You get out of the situation. Might be a good thing. So it depends on the situation. Yeah.
No, Bhante, I'm not talking about like quarreling. It's like in the noisy environments. In the noisy environments whereby you feel like, you want to quickly leave this place
Yeah.
to go to a quiet place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might be a good thing depending on perspective. Depending on perspective. If your mind can be chill, can be focused, if your work ignore the sound, then that means your concentration very good. But if you can still can listen to the sound and the mind still can be at peace, that means you have more wisdom inclined. That means you can be detached. Yeah. But if you have a sense of urgency, you want to, your Kung Fu not good enough, you still can get affected by the minds can get scattered, can feel unease. That means you're aware of your inner spiritual welfare, which can be a good thing also. You want to go to one side, you want to partake in the gossip, you want to listen to the gossip, which can be a good thing also. Yeah. So there's no right or wrong. Yeah.
Bhante, the next question. Can you explain the 5 aggregates, giving example for each one, in particular the last 3?
Okay. So we've covered that in the last lesson, but for the benefit of the newcomers, the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formation, consciousness. These are the 5 clinging aggregates. So I give one example. When we look at the screen, the 5 aggregates I play. So we have the form, for example, the form aggregate. So form aggregate is actually defined as the 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, water properties. So the screen that you see have the earth property, anything solid, tangible, hard. So that is the earth element. And you have the liquid element, would be like the water vapor, the moisture. The fire element is the heat, like the temperature of the screen or the temperature from the eye, the inner body temperature. So we talk about mindful, internal media and external media, right? So internal media would be the tension. You stare at the screen, any tension from your eyes. Yeah, so there's the earth element. The water element would be like the water moisture in your eye and stuff like that. So internal, external. And you have the, for example, the wind element. We cover earth, fire, wind. Yeah. So wind would be the movement, any kind of movement. So any kind of vibration, any kind of movement. So that's the wind element, right? So the eye also have maybe certain movement in the eye socket, the eyeball. We have certain movement and so on. So all these are the 4 elements. So that's the form aggregate. And you have the feeling aggregate. Feeling would be whatever you see, you find it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Externally, you might like the colors, you don't like the colors, or find it neutral. Internally, whatever your eyes might be comfortable or not comfortable, or whatever you perceive, you might label it comfortable, not comfortable. So that's feeling. Then you have perception. Perception is the labels. Whatever memories you have in the past, you try to make sense of what you're seeing. So like right now, I look at the screen, I can see some words, some names, and based on the things you've learned before, your English lessons, and you try to make up, this word is called maybe Louis, or this word is called Zuo Bin, right? So that is called perception. You perceive, or doesn't have to be words, it can be experience. Like right now, I've been giving you, you've been learning what are the 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, water. So whatever you experience now, maybe certain tension in your body, then you might label it as earth element, because you learn something new, and then whatever tension you experience in future, you label it as earth element. Or whatever warmth you experience or coolness you experience, you label it as the heat element. Right? So this is applying your perception. So it's called perception. And the 4th aggregate is mental formation. Every time a new thought is formed, that is called mental formation. And the 5th aggregate is called consciousness, or your awareness. So if you're aware of what you're seeing, then that's your eye consciousness. If you're aware of what you're hearing, that's called ear consciousness. And your nose, tongue, body, and mind. Yeah. So these are your 5 aggregates. So when you see something, 5 aggregates is there. If you hear something, 5 aggregates are also there. You think of something, 5 aggregates are also there. So when you pay attention to your breath, 5 aggregates are there. So we are not training the breath, we're actually trying to understand the 5 aggregates, learning to let go of the 5 aggregates. So hopefully that answers that question. Next one.
Bhante, can you elaborate on the investigation of the Dhamma?
Yeah, so actually we are investigating on impermanence. So this one, you don't have to be too intellectual, so you start off with something evidential. For example, if a person wants to watch the breath, your inhale, exhalation, so that is very obvious already. In breath, out breath, movement, so that is impermanence, arising and passing. So that is maybe the first simple step you can take. But if you want to get more challenge, if let's say you feel bored, you want to add more layers, you can slowly add the 5 aggregates. You breathe in, breathe out, what the elements involved, impermanence, they slowly move on to feelings, they slowly move on to perception, mental formation, consciousness, so on. So you can slowly explore the different Dhamma teachings with regard to impermanence by using the evidence as the anchor point, your meditation subject as the evidence. If you do not use your meditation subject as evidence, then it becomes just theory only. Anybody can just go for any theoretical class, academic class, just theory only. So we want something evidential, applicable, you can observe, and then, that's how it works. So we call this investigation of the Dhamma. You can see it for yourself.
Okay, Bhante, the next one is quite a long question, so I'll read. So the question goes like this. So the person said, some people have argued that the Theravadins only agree that once one's physical body is laid down, it means the heart has stopped, then the person will immediately be reborn in the next birth. However, science proves that although one's heart is stopped, it will still have consciousness for some time until the last thought stops. Hence, some people argue that when one's body is laid down, the heart stops, and the last thought of the brain has ended and ceased, then one is rebirthed into the next body. So I hope Bhante could elaborate further on what exactly is the Theravada idea.
Yeah, I would say the medical science is still evolving. Medical science is still evolving. Yeah, the so-called the life resuscitation, the equipment and the technology is also kind of evolving. The research of these near-death experiences, the NDE, or even out-of-body experiences, OBEs, are also evolving. So the marker to determine death is always like shifting or still shifting. So I won't use the medical science, the clinical death as a benchmark, but however, I'll use the Buddhist terminology as a benchmark. So in Buddhism, death means the breakup of the body, the dissolution of the elements. So that is called death. And dissolution of the elements. So once the body breaks up, you see signs of decomposing. So that is the dissolution of the elements when there is decomposition. So in the Mahayana or even the Tibetan traditions, I think last year I was invited to watch this documentary film, the Buddhist Film Festival. I've forgotten what's the name of the film. Tukdam, Tukdam. So they talk about meditators who are able to meditate, and even though they're clinically dead, the yogis that serve the particular dead yogi still say the body is still warm. And the clinically dead yogi, the body is still warm. They can still sit upright. So the medical professionals, the the funeral directors, the undertakers, when they go to the scene, they are shocked also. How can the body be upright, seated upright? How can there still be heat in the body? Right? So they're still researching, still discovering, but the technology at the point of time, or the current technology, at least the mainstream science, still cannot determine consciousness according to the field. So the university, I'm not sure what university, is it Harvard or what, cannot determine consciousness, cannot empirically measure consciousness. They cannot do that. So they only can measure heat of the body, they can measure the heart rate, the brain activity, that's all. This is how far the mainstream equipment can bring us. So that's science. So science will not talk about the metaphysical thing, whether the mind, how the mind moves to another body and stuff like that. No mentioning. Science, at least the modern mainstream science, have no explanation about it yet. So the question, I believe, is talking about Theravada and Mahayana, right? Yeah. So modern Theravada will talk about immediate rebirth. That means once a person dissolution of body, then immediately take rebirth somewhere. So this is the modern Theravada stance, and there's no mentioning of intermediate state. However, in the early suttas, there is a mention of a certain intermediate state called the Gandhabas. It's mentioned of you need 3 factors for birth to take place. You need to have the parents, the male, the female, have to be mating. The mother is in season, that means ovulation, and you need to have the Gandhaba present. The Gandhaba has to be standing there. So that means it's not really immediate as in the split second immediate, but something has to be there, right? So this is the old Theravada suttas, right? So, but the modern stance is due to the, I would say, maybe misinterpretation or on the teachings of dependent origination, taken out of context. Then they will say, oh, it's an immediate kind of rebirth. Then again, it's subject to interpretation. Some will say, immediate rebirth into a Gandhaba, and from a Gandhaba, immediate rebirth to a human. They want to translate like that, or also depends on how they want to take it. Okay, so for the Mahayana tradition, they have like an intermediate state, like the Zhong Sen, or the Tibetans, they call it the Bardo state. So they'll talk about the 7 days or the 49 days, that kind of stuff. So in the Theravada tradition, even in the old suttas, there is no mention of the time frame. So in that particular aspect, we are like a total blur of the time frame. In the Mahayana tradition, there is a mention of the time frame, right? So again, it's up to the individual how they, what they want to believe, or how they want to subscribe to the practice. But to play safe, because I'm from the Theravada tradition, I'm the Kyasi tradition, Kyasi, because we do not want to die so many times, Theravada tradition. So we say we try to practice as far as we can get, and whatever happens, we can't control really, right?
Okay, so there's a follow-up question on whether a Gandhaba, is it a spirit or is it something like that?
It's an unknown entity, so we just call it Gandhaba. You can call it the mind, you can call it the spirit, whatever it is. So like in one of the previous sessions, the Buddha did not say there is no soul. Even though the Buddha teach the concept of anatta, atta means soul. The opposite of atta means anatta. So a lot of translators, they do a direct translation, they will say no soul. But whereas one of the 10 questions that the Buddha refused to answer is whether there's a soul or no soul. The Buddha never answered because it's a metaphysical question. Buddha did not answer. So that refutes the point of the belief that there is no soul in Buddhism. So the Buddha never mentioned there's no soul or there is a soul. The Buddha doesn't want to answer. So that state, that being, whether you call it a Gandhabba or a soul or a mind or consciousness or whatever you call it, not so important actually. To the Buddha is not so important. What is more important is the mindfulness of impermanence, because it is the greed that fuel the rebirth, fuel the existence. So whatever state the mind is in or the being is in, whether they're alive or whether they're transiting or whatever it is, if they're mindful, they can detach. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that are online right now.
I see so many chat. Okay.
Okay, there's a new question. Okay. Bante, so is it important for us to focus more on impermanence in our daily practice to make progress in our practice?
Yes, if you really want to be serious about it and always mindful of impermanence. So again, it's good to have a diverse tool in your toolkit. So if, let's say, if you get stuck, you contemplate mindfulness of impermanence and you find that your mind is not ready to accept the impermanence, you have other kinds of meditation to neutralize the mind, make it more calm and objective. Then you can proceed on with impermanence again. Yeah.
Okay, then is there a meditation object for impermanence?
Mindfulness of what?
Is there a meditation object for impermanence?
How do you spell that?
A meditation object. Meditation.
Object.
Yes.
Oh, object. Okay. It can be any meditation object. Any meditation object, there's both the samatha phase and the vipassana phase. So the vipassana or the insight, the wisdom phase is to be aware of impermanence. And if you do not want to reflect on impermanence, then that's the samatha phase. It's just the calming phase. So a person can just watch the breath, inhale, exhale, just to calm the mind, and they do not want to reflect impermanence. So a lot of people just do that, or some group of people, they just do that. They calm the mind, but they never reflect on impermanence. Yeah, so that's just samatha. And same thing with impurities of the body. They can just visualize the hair. Just think of the hair. They don't think of the hair falling and growing. Just think of the hair. And they just want to have a clear, sharp image, or think of the bones, clear, sharp image. And that's it. So that's just the samatha part. And usually those visualization, meditation, I'll cover more in the next lesson. Yeah? Usually it's to like develop this divine eye kind of ability. Yeah? Not really useful for the detachment. Yeah.
Bhante, can I ask a question?
Yep.
For contemplation on this past incident, past experience, is it a good meditation object for impermanence?
Past incident, try not to think on that.
Oh.
Try not to think of past incidents. Once you dramatize it, you think of the dramas, then we call this 5 hindrances. It's called worry, restlessness and worry. It's good for a mundane sense. You want to prevent mistakes from happening in future. You might do that, but you want to talk about deeper meditation, we try to avoid that. Yeah.
Okay, Bhante. I think Sharon has a question. Sharon, you ask Bhante directly.
Yeah.
Okay. Evening, Bhante. Can I check with you? So, am I moving in the right direction when I deliberately control the joy experienced during happy occasions? So, because knowing that the occasion will not last for long, how can I be mindful during such occasion? For example, you've just been told that you're given a promotion or you've been given a pay rise. Could you please give me guidance on this? Thank you.
Oh, control the joy. Wow, okay. Normally, there must be like certain thought that trigger the joy. So like when, let's say if you think of the promotion, then you feel happy, right? So I would still consider that under the worldly, mundane kind of joy. Is still not the detachment kind of joy. Yeah, so unless you're rejoicing for someone else, then it's considered a bit more towards the sublime states. But if it's just for yourself, then a bit self-cherishing, but nothing wrong. You want to celebrate your own successes and all. It's all fine. But if you are serious about your spiritual side, then you can be mindful of impermanence. Yeah, let's say somebody want to hold a party for you. By all means, they hold a party for you. You can join the celebration, but in the meantime, you still can think of, okay, this will eventually pass away.
Okay.
All right.
Can. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Bante, there's one question. Hi, Bante, can we reflect on karma to calm our mind?
Yes, so that's one of the fourth sublime state on equanimity. We normally reflect on karma. Yeah. So in order to do that, you need to observe the moment-to-moment pleasant and unpleasant sensations. It's not about reflecting on, oh, in the past, I must have done this, that's why I experienced this thing now. So once you dramatize, then it's wrong already. It's not the correct kind of meditation. So do not speculate or guess what you've done in the past. Do not go into the storytelling. Do not go into the dramas. So the way to really have the calm effect by reflecting on karma is that every sensation that arises, if it is a pleasant sensation, then you just take note, this good karma is ripening. If it is an unpleasant sensation, then you just take note, this is a bad karma ripening. And if it's a neutral sensation, then neutral karma is ripening. So in short, evidence, karma, evidence, karma, evidence, karma. So it is the here and now, moment to moment, moment to moment. Yeah. So eventually the mind will get, I would say, sian, you get a bit disenchanted with pursuing these pleasant and unpleasant sensations. When the mind is enchanted, pleasant sensation come, you develop greed, you like it, you want more, you get excited over it. If you experience an unpleasant sensation, you get frustrated, you get angry, you want to reject, you want to fight, you want to push it away. So there's a lot of this the mind overexcitement. So by getting disenchanted, the mind is, I will accept karma. Yeah, good, bad, never mind. The mind is at peace with the karma already, peace with all the sensation. So it requires constant reflection, moment to moment. Yeah?
Okay, Bante, one more question. How important are compassion and loving kindness in our practice?
Yeah, compassion and loving kindness. So earlier on in the Noble Eightfold Path, we covered right resolve, thoughts of non-ill will, and thoughts of harmlessness. Yeah, so the opposite of harmlessness is compassion. Yeah, if a person is not compassionate, then they enjoy cruelty. They enjoy seeing people suffer. Yeah, so by practicing, cultivating compassion, they're actually practicing this right resolve, practicing right thought, practicing these thoughts of harmlessness. And if a person practice loving kindness, they're practicing thoughts of non-ill will, part of the Noble Eightfold Path. So loving kindness and compassion is essential to the practice because it's already part of the Noble Eightfold Path. Because there are, I think, modern meditation manuals that kind of give certain meditations of subjects like a second-class rating, things like loving kindness, things like recollecting of the Buddha, like second-hand, second-class, great kind of meditation. They put a breath meditation is like the best, something like that. So a lot of people, we have the misconception that loving kindness is like not an important meditation, or things like recollecting on the Buddha is not an important meditation. All these are actually post-canonical kind of ideology. Whereas in the Buddha's time, any meditation object can lead to enlightenment depending on your 5 faculties. Yep.
Monday, there's no more question here.
Okay, how about people on the ground, live audiences? Any questions? We're still 10 minutes early though. Everyone, New Year mood? Any things you want to come up? Any questions?
Monday, I ask a question.
Yep.
Okay, just now you were saying about the delegation of merits. When we do a donation on behalf of someone and we write their names on the donation paper, as compared to we write the donation in our name and when we delegate the merits to them, are they the same?
Depending on who's the person you write, are they still alive?
Alive.
If it's alive, then make sure they know about this act of charity. They need to rejoice in that act of giving. Then that will generate merit. If they do not know what's going on, no matter how much good you do in whoever's name, then they continue to, let's say, indulge in unwholesome activities, then it's pointless. Yeah.
Okay. So would it be better to write in our own name and then we delegate the merits to them?
They need to be informed of your act of charity.
Even we delegate the merits to them, they also need to be informed.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, but there's one question. So, what do you think about the twin miracle?
Twin miracle. I don't know what happened because I wasn't there in the past, but it is believed, according to scripture, the Buddha has all the psychic abilities, so it may be possible for the Buddha to do it, but to appease the relatives. I'm not sure whether that story is commentarial story or is it part from the sutta, but regardless, I think it's trying to point out the moral of the story is that it is very hard to teach your own relatives. It is very hard to teach Dhamma to your own blood relatives. So this is very true even for myself. A bit hard to teach my own parents also. Because to them, hey, you're my child, one. I take salt more than you take rice, something like that. So they need to be in the right condition in order to be able to perceive or be receptive to the teaching. So that's why it's very hard to repay your parents. In Buddhism, we talk about filial piety or gratitude. The Buddha mentioned if you can transform your parents from a selfish person to a generous person, that is one way to repay your parents. If you can transform them from having no faith to a person who has faith in the spiritual path, then that is fulfilling your obligation as a child. If you're able to transform your parents from immoral person to a moral person, then you've done your part. And the last one, if you can transform them from a unwise person to someone with more wisdom, then you've done your part. Then you've done your part. So these are the 4 very hard things to do to change your relatives. So the Buddha has to do that, according to that story, to make the listeners listen. So that is according to, I think it's a commentary story. However, in the Theravada Sutta, the Buddha actually discouraged the monks to display miracles, because that will create certain skepticism, wrong kind of thought. First is, whatever you perform, they may not acknowledge it as your meditation kind of progress. They might think, hey, maybe it's black magic, maybe it's summoning demons, that kind of thing. People may have this certain doubt. Or number 2, maybe it's a magic show, magic trick, it's an illusion, it's trickery. So they might have this thought. And the third one is using certain charms. So basically, there are various methods to accomplish certain supernatural kind of phenomenon. Doesn't have to be through meditation. So the Buddha actually discouraged displaying of miracles because of these reasons. Right? So whether the Buddha displayed miracles to the Sakyan clan, I do not know. Do not know for sure. Yeah. Okay. So that hopefully that answers the question.